What's up, boxing fans? This is TBE Boxing, back at you again. Today's topic, Monster Mash, Benavidez versus Morrell, the TBE Boxing post-fight breakdown and analysis. Let's chop it up and see what it's all about.
So when I stop him, y'all gonna say he was too weak.
On my life.
And he stayed at 147.
You would not stop
too long.
me. You would not stop me.
Okay.
You crazy. You quit smoking on. Esmer, hey.
Got the money for marriage, pretty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? This is the life that I chose, huh? On the block with the pole, huh? That's life before riches, huh? And I got the glitz, you gonna ball me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.
Okay, boxing fans, let's talk some boxing. Let's chop it up. All right, so we all saw the fight, the Monster versus Morrell. Now, as you can see from my cover, I made a pre-fight video, and my pre-fight prediction was that it would be a knockout by round 7 by the Monster, David Benavidez. But as we all know, that did not happen. But at the end of the day, everything basically went more or less the way I figured it would go to a certain degree, except for the knockout. It was a great fight. Both guys, put up an epic struggle. I got to give it to David Benavidez. He surprised me. Excuse me, not Benavidez, but Morrell. He surprised me a little bit by not getting knocked out. I thought he would have been knocked out because of his lack of experience at the level, at that level. Okay. But he showed a little toughness in there. There was not a little toughness. He's very, very tough kid. He showed the heart, and he went the whole distance, which was a bit surprising to me. Now, everything, like I said, played out more or less the way it was supposed to play out, except for the knockout, right? Because as I've observed, in my previous video, I haven't really seen anything by David Morrell that would, lead me to believe that he could beat David Benavidez, even though the fight was a lot closer than I would think it would have been. Like I said, I was predicting a knockout by the 7th round, and the truth be known, there could have been a knockout by the 7th round or by any other round, except for one thing. That is the fact that David Benavidez was not conditioned to go the 12 rounds. He got tired in there. I mean, they both got tired, but Benavidez is the more experienced fighter. He should have been ready to go 12 rounds, and be strong in the later rounds. I mean, he went the 12 round, but he just wasn't that strong in the later rounds. And David Morrell tried to come on a little bit, in the later rounds, but he didn't really. He had a good effort, but he didn't really. It didn't succeed. David Benavidez was able to hold him back. But again, if both of those, if David Morrell was in a little bit better condition, he could have been a more, it would have been a more effective fight for him. But again, he got tired himself. Which is one of the criticism I had of David Morrell is that he's still a 3-round fighter. So basically, what it comes down to is that once David Morrell comes into the ring, and he does what he does for like about the 3, 4, 5 rounds, if he can't succeed at what he's doing, then he doesn't really know what to do after that. Okay, because he's gonna fight good for about 5 rounds. Okay, after that, he runs out of ideas and he doesn't really know what to do. He just keep going over and over the same thing. We saw, again, if this fight would have happened, say 3 or 4 fights down the road, it could have been a different result. We could have had a different winner. But again, I thought it was brilliant by David Benavidez to take this fight now, while Morrell was still green, more or less. And so he was able to knock Morrell off, even though Morrell put up a great struggle. But Benavidez was able to knock him off at this point, where if he would have took the fight 2, 3 fights later, he probably would have been able to do that. Okay, so this was a brilliant move by Morrell and his people, and they succeeded. I guess the only criticism I have of David Benavidez is that he's got to come into these fights in better condition, because the same thing happened with the Plant fight. He got tired in that fight. Plant went the distance. He gets tired. Every fighter gets tired, but I just think that he needs to be training for longer, train for 15, 20 rounds. That way you won't get tired in the later rounds. So it was a great performance by Benavidez nonetheless. And David Morrell, he performed great as well. He showed some toughness in there, and he showed that he has heart and that he could go the distance if he has to. Okay, which he did. So when it's all said and done, both guys put up a great performance. For being such a green fighter, again I was a little surprised that Morrell was able to go the distance and put up such a strong fight, even though he got outlanded by Benavidez, because again, excuse me, once he ran out of ideas, he didn't really have much to offer after that, but to just stay there and try to punch it out with Benavidez, which was a mistake. And he wasn't, his corner kept telling him what to do, to move his head and not to stand in front of Benavidez. But again, he really had nothing else, he didn't really have anything else to do. He couldn't come up with anything else. The bottom line is that, it's all good while you're in there against lesser opponents, and you get to do whatever you want, and you do all this, fancy things in there, and you get away with it. Athleticism and all of that, you get away with, a lot of things that you wouldn't ordinarily get away with, unless, when you're in there with, more elite fighters, which was the case with David Benavidez. He was a more seasoned fighter than David Morrell was used to facing, and it showed to a certain degree. Again, I gotta admit that David Morrell did put up a strong, a strong fight. I gotta give him that. Okay, but at the end of the day, the lack of big fight experience and the lack of experience, period, ended up costing him the fight, and that's basically what it comes down to. But again, it was a great performance by both guys. I can see that in the future, David Morrell is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the light heavyweight division, but he needs about 3-4 more fights to really get to where he needs to be able to take on the likes of Bivol or Beterbiev or Benavidez. So I don't really see him. Then again, he probably learned a lot from this fight. Okay, it looked like he might have learned a lot from this fight. He took a good beating in there. A lot of body shots was, really, those body shots I think was really vicious, and some head shots too. So David Benavidez really put it on him, but he landed some shots himself, and looked like he hurt Benavidez once or twice in there. So again, it's all, but when it comes down to it, Benavidez, the conditioning. Okay, that's what it's all it is. He just needs to condition himself better than he's doing, so that he can come in there and go a full 12 round without any problem if he has to. Okay, and I would think that if he came in the fights with better condition, he wouldn't have to go 12 rounds. Like, if he was in better condition, he would have stopped. If Benavidez was in better condition, he would have stopped Morrell in this fight, but he just wasn't able to pull the trigger, late in the fight. Okay, because he was too tired. He almost collapsed. It looked like at certain points in the fight. He was tired. But the only thing that really saved him was that David Morrell was even more tired, so he couldn't really do anything himself. Yeah, so it was a great fight. A lot better than I thought it would have been under the circumstances. Again, Benavidez, great. He got a great, not Benavidez, but Morrell got a great future. If they bring him along correctly, don't put him in there with any more Benavidez's. You know what I'm saying? He already had his shot against an elite fighter. Bring him along a little bit more, and then throw him out there. with the rest of the Sharks. But he's not ready for the Sharks at this point. But again, he should have learned a lot from this fight, which I think he probably did. So it was good to also see that end of the fight. The guys hugged and shook hands and hugged it out, and so there's no leftover animosity or anything like that. I like that. Both guys got respect for each other, which they I don't see why they wouldn't have, considering that it was a tough fight for both of them. Actually, it wasn't like it was a complete blowout, but it was a decisive win for Benavidez. Okay, so the monster prevailed. It was a monster match. So now, I guess the question is, where do they go from here? Now, there are talks about Benavidez possibly fighting the winner of Bivol and Benavidez. I mean, I like Benavidez. I picked him to win by knockout, and again, he's disappointed because, again, he wasn't in condition to get the knockout. If he was in condition, he could have got it. But again, he slacked. Benavidez slacks too much on his conditioning. You know what I mean? It's all good to depend on, you can't just depend on power. And even though he's the most seasoned fighter in there, and, it showed, but a lot of things that Benavidez doing there is not going to fly against, better opponents like a guy like Bivol or Benavidez, because Benavidez squares up a lot in there with both feet, like he's right in front of you, squared up, which I don't understand how he gets away with that. That's a recipe for disaster. Just standing squarely in front of your opponent, with your high guard, and I don't know, it just doesn't look right as far as I can see. I think it's a big mistake him doing that type of thing. He needs to cut that out, and and focus on being a bit more evasive. But we saw that again in this fight, people were talking about how Morrell was a phenom, and which is I call it the boost in his factor, the boost in his phenom factor. It looks all good on the highlights, and when you're fighting lesser opponents, you're in there doing all these different things, like we saw, Boost doing until he got into the fight with Karen Kodzukian, and then we really saw where he was really at. Okay, I gotta give it to I mean, I don't. Let's put it this way. I'm not sure. I think that Boost is probably a better fighter than Morrell, in the sense that he has more of a arsenal, more in the tool bag in terms of punch selection. Because again, in this fight, Morrell was just basically doing the same thing over and over again, which I figured that was going to happen, because that's how he fought in his last fight, where he wasn't able to get the guy out of there, and he had to go the distance. And once he had to go the distance, he just kept doing the same thing over and over again. And this is the same thing that happened in this fight. He just doesn't have the. I guess it just comes down to experience. I mean, that's what it comes down to. He does this experience. He needs more experience. Simple as that. More big fights, more fights against top level opponents to get him the experience he needs to know what to do in there when one thing isn't working. He couldn't adjust. He wasn't able to make any adjustments, And so we all saw what happened. But besides that, I got to give him, I'll give him a lot of credit. That is Morrell. He did a lot better than I thought he would have, to tell you the truth. I mean, way better. Okay, with what he had. He did his best with what he had, and his best is nothing to be sneezed at. It was pretty good. You almost had Benavidez. If he could have, I think the same thing goes for Morrell as well. If he wasn't in a better condition, he probably would have had it would have been a better outcome for him. He'd have been more competitive, which he was very competitive as it was, but he could have been even more competitive if he was in better condition, because again, Benavidez, always slacks up on his, on his conditioning. I just think that he's never really in tip-top condition in there. He's usually, I don't know what's going on, if, what his camp was like, if it was a fat camp, but it seemed that might have been what it was. So you can't always be having these fat camps before your fight, where instead of getting yourself together, you're busy cutting weight. Okay, which is, I think that maybe one of the issues with David Benavidez is that, more in his camp he's cutting weight instead of getting in condition because he's walking around, overweight and out of shape and things like that. He needs to stay more disciplined in there and, try to stay in shape in between fights, But, again, his experience, his IQ, and his, punch selection in this fight was a beautiful thing to watch. He did a great job. I mean, those body shots was wreaking havoc on David Morrell. I mean, some vicious. I was expecting Morrell to collapse from one of those body shots eventually, but he didn't. He took them like a man. But man, those body shots were brutal. And the thing I liked about Benavidez in this fight was that he kept doing it. He kept putting in those body shots on Morrell round after round. I think that was one of the reasons why Morrell was a little bit restrained. He couldn't really get off like he wanted to. Those body shots, I think, kind of weakened him a little bit as well, as the fact that even though looked like he was in pretty good condition because he went the whole fight, those body shots really slowed him down. I think they really put it on him, and it really had a big effect on him. So it was a great strategy by Benavidez. He did the right. I mean, his punch selection was crazy. He was throwing everything in there. I thought the fight would, in my pre-fight analysis, I said that the uppercut on the left hook would end the fight, for Morrell, for Benavidez. But as we all saw, the uppercut did land, but Morrell has a great chin, and he was able to take those shots and still stay in there. So yeah, kudos to both guys. It was a great fight. I'm looking forward to see what both of them are going to be doing next because I think they both got a great future ahead of them. I think Morrell, especially, he still has a great future, even though he lost his fight. I think it was a good fight for him to lose in the sense that I think he'll get a lot of experience from this fight, and it'll make him a much better fighter, as we move forward. But with that said, congratulations to both guys. Both of you guys did a great job. We're going to leave it there. This is TBE Boxing saying, I'm out.
So when I stop him, y'all gonna say he was too weak.
On my life.
And he stayed at 147.
You would not stop
too long.
me. You would not stop me.
Okay.
Crazy. What's he smoking on? Hey.
Got the money for marriage, petty bitch, gotta show me titties. This is the life that I chose, On the block with the pole, This is the life that I chose, On the block with the pole, That's life before riches, And I got the glitzy, run up on me, I'ma make you get it. I'ma make you get it.